Hey, how's it going everyone? Here with two figures. That's right, it is the TECHNO AZUR, who's already unboxed here on the stand with the coolery stand case for all the additional parts, which we'll get a closer look at shortly. But behind we do have the box for this awesome figure. Have already opened it, but we do have the other figure here, which is the what one is this? Mandarin Surf one. But yeah, check out these boxes. Absolutely digging the packaging for this. Both of them have a really nice slip box or slip cover design with the inner packaging underneath. So we'll get a closer look at that in a moment. But first off, what are these? What is a Motored Cyborg Runner? Well, this chick right here is one of them. Now this is a collaboration between Goodsmile and Sentinel. And it's based on an artist's work. So there isn't any like anime game or anything like that for the set, but I can definitely see it coming. It would be pretty cool. Some badass cyborg races, and they have weapons. There is a sword on the back here, which we'll get a closer look at in a moment. So basically, there's heaps of designs already for these different characters. They're essentially, think of Formula 1 racing, but cyborg, rollerblading, demon chicks, I guess. But yeah, so each one kind of has a different design, color scheme, die-cast parts. Yeah, everything on these looks really cool. Just a super stylized design, and just caught my eye last year at the Goodsmile event actually. First saw these, the prototypes for these on display. It's just going to collect, you know, I grew up loving rollerblading. Sci-fi stuff I love, with whole like cyborg tech stuff, and just, you know, the detailing on these figures caught my eye, along with the actual box design, or I should say the whole graphic design for the concept is really cool. So all caught my eye, so I had to grab these. Not cheap. I was regretting getting them. They're just over 20,000 yen each, around 22,000 yen. Not cheap. Was regretting purchasing until I got in hand. You know, I'm happy I got them, and there is a third one that has been recently displayed, at least, or announced they'll be getting a release at the Goodsmile event in summer, or was that summer? Anyway, just recently that was announced. No actual release details yet. I'm not sure if I'll get it, but I'm leaning towards it after getting these, and they just look too cool. Definitely a lot higher quality than other figure lines out there, but again, that's reflected by the price. But yeah, what we'll do, we'll go over the Mandarin Surf, check out the boxes, pop it open, see what they do come with, and yeah, show again with the what's that, TECHNO AZUR one here as well, and have a look at the articulation and the a closer look at all the detailing on these figures. Okay, so we've got both boxes here, and on the front we have the spec details for each figure. The AZUR one, there is a 4-stroke DOC single cylinder. Same with the Mandarin Surf as well. It has your displacement, you know, bore stroke and all that stuff as well, which is really cool. We do have a nice line down here on the front of each box showcasing the colours that are used on the figure. I think that is really nice, and all those colours again are reused on the inner packaging, which we'll see in a moment. Nice illustration on the side, along with the Motored Cyborg Runner logo as well, which is cool. On the back, the normal what's it, packaging box design, or I should say details they have, Max Factory logo and the Sentinel one there, since it is a collaboration. And then on the side we have a close-up shot, one of the leg and of the back from the Mandarin Surf. Now, as I mentioned, these have a slip cover. These come off. And then we have the really cool artistic design for the boxes. Again, we've got images of the figures themselves and a nice real stylized design. It does appear, actually these are exactly the same imaging, just a different color, and obviously the name of the figure printed on there. I mean, I definitely love the high quality design for these. There's also a QR code on the back there, which will go to the official website for them. And the website itself is really cool. So we've got the AZUR that's there. I think if we keep swiping. We've got Mandarin Surf, and I'm not sure if we have any details for the original. Actually, there was a prototype version which came out, that was released at the event last year, and obviously again recently at Wonderfest in summer. I don't think there's, oh, here we go, this is the illustration for the upcoming one at least. So red white scheme with green hair with a long ponytail. But yeah, there's lots of different designs out there, so it'll be really cool to see what they come out with in the future. Now for the inner packaging, as I mentioned, I've already got this one open, so you've got the clamshell instructions behind. So let's put this off to the side and let's open up the Mandarin Surf. So if we pop this open as well, there we go. So you can kind of see the clamshell packaging, which is in two parts. So let's just open there. So we've got the instructions and the two clamshell packages. So on the back we have the case, as well as the stand rod and it's actually a weird design. It's pretty cool. It does allow for some nice angles, but it definitely is a little bit of an old stand. Takes a little bit to get used to. But yeah, anyway, we have the base of the stand. We've got the back wheels, so you can switch them out to a different colour. So I guess if you get multiple of them, which is pretty cool. And then we've got the additional hands. I think these are the ones for holding onto a sword. And then the sprayed finger as well. And then we also have a closed fist on her. We've got some windswept here and two additional faces. All the faces are pretty neutral. Same with the TECHNO AZUR, which we'll get a closer look at a little bit later. But generally, closed mouth, looking off into the side, and that kind of concentrated look. There is the backpack, which slots into the back there. We've got the sword, which goes into this as well. And then we have two different exhaust manifold, or anyway, two different sized exhaust that you can attach. You've got a small one and a large one, so you do have some nice flexibility there for switching and changing around the look. So actually, if I move this off to the side for one moment, we can bring in the Azure one here, and as you can see, I've got the backpack on, the sword holder, and I've got the larger exhaust there. And as you can see, the stand kind of goes up on an angle. It's on a ball joint, so you can move it all the way around. And it will slide to the back of the backpack, and it has a latch which will open and shut to hide it. So it's really cool. If you have it on the stand, lift it up, it still blends in well. Don't use the stand, shut this, you won't even see the hole in the back, which is fantastic. Okay, so the Mandarin Surf is up on the turntable, spinning around, and you know, just take a moment, absorb in all that detail, the colour, the design. There's just so much to look at, so many little wee detailings on this figure. It definitely is amazing to look at. And not only you got shiny, you got matte, you got grey colour, lighter grey colour, a carbon fibre pattern, you got die cast parts. Everything in there is super crisp and clean and looks so nice. So as I mentioned, you've got the die cast joints in here for the joints. Everything around is nice, even on the back with a little bit pistons here, moves slightly. Got the full-on joints for the wheels. The wheels move, which we'll get a closer look at soon. But we've got the carbon fibre look on the bottom of the blade, on the kneecap. You got the nice darker grey on behind the leg, and then in the joint colour as well. And everything just kind of blends in beautifully. We've got the silver colour up here for the motor on the back, and everything links around. The top part here is nice and shiny. The hair is subtly translucent with a nice kind of dark, kind of charcoaly brown colour, which looks really nice. The horns have a beautiful colour separation of white and black. It's shiny. Everything on this thing just looks so nice. Extra detailing on the front of the jacket there. Then you have all the little decals down on the front here. One on the side, one on the two on the patch there, couple on the legs. There's just so many little things, even one down here on the blade. It's so cool. And exactly the same with TECHNO AZUR on the side here. As you can see, especially on the leg there, all the detailing and details. Now overall, for the most part, both of these are the exact same figure. Obviously subtle differences in obviously the colouring. I haven't looked too closely, but maybe the top part is a little bit different as well. I think the backpack. And speaking of the backpack, you can see the slot here where it will join in, and we can do that in a moment. But first, we can take a look at the sword here. So this will slot in the backpack, but I want to point out first the blade on the back here. This will lift up or down. I guess you pull the handle down a bit. That should slot out. A little bit fiddly. There we go. So the whole blade itself comes out, and that's super cool. It looks like a nice little, what's it? Titanium blade katana or something like that. So really nice and versatile, and love how it just slots into it back there. Now we can then take this, slot it into the front bottom part of the backpack like so, and then we have the blade in the backpack, and it says fuel. So this is the fuel tank. What's it, 1.2 litre on the side. It's got super nice crisp detailing all the way around, and this will just easily slot into the back of the figure. Now this top part here might be a little bit hard to get. So as I mentioned on the Azure one, this top part opens up. It's a little bit hard to get at, so just using a toothpick, I found it easier to kind of slot in underneath. You can use it to pry that top part up, which will then open up, revealing the slot for the stand. But anyway, as the Mandarin surf swings around, let's slot this onto the back of the figure to complete the look. There we go. Now that looks super cool with the backpack on as well. And as we can see with the, let's switch these figures around actually. So as the Techno surfer will swing around, you'll notice they've got a kind of pose leaning forward as if she's taking a stride, reaching around to grab that blade to take out her opponent. And we've got the exhaust here, which again moves up and down, which we haven't actually attached to the Mandarin surf. So let's slot on a small exhaust on this figure. There is a little wee slot on the back here, and we can just slide this in like so. There we go. So lots of options, which is really cool. And as mentioned earlier, the stand itself, which can work as a base, can also work as a storage unit. So the stand itself opens up, like so. Even has the logo embossed underneath, two separate compartments, the line logo on the top, on the sides and on the top, which is really cool. And then you also get a really cool little mini base plate if you want to use for some more dynamic poses, so it's not raised up by, 2 centimeters give or take. And again, it's got the Motored Cyborg Runner text there printed on it, and with matching colours. So for the 01 here, we've got a blue and black one. Okay, before we check out the faces, let's take a closer look at the articulation and get a bit more of a closer look at all the fine detail on this figure. So starting with the head, we've got some decent range of motion forward. Back is pretty decent as well, though it will kind of clip into the back of the backpack and the neck there. We've got some nice left and right rotation as well, and as well as the tilting. So overall the articulation is nice, but actually more importantly, I want to highlight just how nice and smooth that joint feels. And then coming down into the shoulder here, so I'm pretty sure that shoulder joint there is actually die cast. Everything feels super smooth, super premium and nice. Again, everything just moves around really well with a great range of articulation. Again, we have the upper, not really bicep swivel, but at least on that shoulder joint we can swivel around, which is nice. The elbow joint is super, crisp and clean as well, and then it looks pretty good as well. It blends in nicely, especially with the elbow guard. The wrist peg is nice. The hands do come off super easy. It is just that think it's the same design as the Figmas actually. I'm not sure about Sentinel, but it's just a straight line. So do be careful about that, as the hands can come off easily. And as you can see here, really nice detailing and painting on the hand or glove as well. So it may be a little bit hard to see, but the inner area just in here will also move, so we have a little bit of flexibility as well. I wouldn't call it quite a butterfly joint like the one on the Dragon Ball figures or anything like that, where it's double articulator comes around, but it is nice that we also have a front and back motion for that inner shoulder joint. And then coming down to the torso, the front part of the design here with the carbon fiber stomach guard will move up and down, which is nice. And then also the front torso articulation is really good, especially when combined with the lower hip area there. But even just the top section itself is really nice. And same for going back, you can angle her back pretty far, and then with the front guard being able to move, you can kind of lift it up or down depending on the pose to make it look more natural. As well as the left and right twisting, which is great. And then the backpack also will move around a little bit, not too much, but you do get a little bit of motion there, which is nice. And as we saw before, the exhaust can move up and down as well for both the small and large design. Then coming into the hip area, as I mentioned before, these are die cast joints, which is really nice. I mean, not really able to do the splits completely, but a decent range of motion there, but the armor parts will kind of clip underneath. Going back, you get a little bit of motion on the inner joint, and then you have the lower leg joint here, which will get a bit more motion if required. But going forward is really nice. We also have the upper thigh swivel, and then the knee joint is extremely good, as you can see. And again, everything looks really natural. And then I love how all the armor is designed, so it blends in really well. Now moving down to the ankles, we have the, actually this is a little bit more complicated. The wheels will move individually, and then you got the upper part which will move, and then all of this should move on that joint as well. This one's a little bit stiff compared to the other figure, but again, everything will move lovely once you kind of move a few times. Again, got the really good tilting action going on. Everything, it just feels really nice. The wheel moves, actually all three wheels move, which is cool. And while the piston on the back here doesn't move, it does look really cool. So moving over to the faces for the Mandarin Surf, again this is the base neutral look, but I definitely love the eyes. Lots of crisp and clean detailing there. I know these, kind of a sharp look, kind of looks like a wild animal, which pairs beautifully with those horns. Now to change the faceplates, we actually need to pop the horns off, so these will pop out. Once we've got those off, we can then slide the bangs off, and then that should give us access to the faceplate, which will slot off like so. Now the second faceplate we have here, which will slot on, this one is looking off to the right hand side, and a kind of subtly annoyed look. Okay, so yeah, this face again is really nice. It really has that kind of disinterested look. You can kind of imagine her standing off to the side, waiting for a race, unfazed by her opponents. Yeah, the subtle look to the right is definitely great on this one. And then finally we have a bit of a cheeky face. This one's looking off to the left with their mouth open ever so subtly. Kind of imagine her going, oh, or something along those lines, kind of again, a little bit of a disinterested look, but definitely really cool. Okay, and before we switch over to the other figure, I do want to showcase the really cool windswept here. Again, we can see it sweeping all the way down underneath the ear, which is cool. And this will definitely pair well with the, the face here, which is looking straight on, and a nice cool dynamic pose. Okay, so moving over to TECHNO AZUR, the base face is really cool. Again, looking straight on with all those super nice details. I feel like the faces, they look basically exactly the same actually. So we can have a little comparison on that in a moment. But the hair again is really nice with a subtle translucent colour for the front bang. And this time we have a blue and white horn with a black and blue one, which is really cool. Okay, so we've got the second face here, and just like the first figure, exactly the same. And I did check, they are the same face plates, it's just the colouring is different. But this one's got the grey opposed to the dark brown. But again, looks really cool, looking off to the right hand side. And then finally we've got the third face, again that subtle pout looking down to the left, which is really cool. And I kind of feel like this face, pairs beautifully with that katana sword that she has. And just what we have here, let's just have a quick look at the overall detailing. As you can see, we've got the really cool decals on the side of the blue powder armor. Her upper neck area is yellow, and we've got the detailing on the side of the jumper too. And again, all the way onto the back for the fuel tank, and then all the way down the legs as well. Got the really cool detailing up here. All the way down to the roller blade itself. As we saw earlier, everything moves individually, and it just feels really, really nice. So both of them are excellent out of the box, which is really great. Exactly the same design, but it's kind of like racing cars, right? All the racing cars are the same, but the only thing that is different is the colouring and the driver. So in this case, the body is the race car with the head. I'm not sure. Well, they are cyborgs after all. But different personality, conveyed by the hair colour or horns. So that's pretty cool. Simple, but works really well, I feel. Definitely excited to see the other designs come out. There were some really cool designs with long hair, different facial structure as well from memory. So I'm guessing we might get a couple at a time, maybe using the same body, just with a different paint job. Okay, so we've got them both posed up here, and as you can see, leaning over, they hold their weight so well because of those die cast joints. But definitely the stand is really interesting, as you can see when it comes around. This is on the flat base, but as we saw before, we can use it on the bigger stand as well. Ball joint on the bottom, mini ball joint on the pole, so it can go up and down and tilt on that, and then it will slot into the back of the backpack. Fiddly to use, take it a little bit to get used to, but definitely pretty cool. I like the unique design. Means you can get the figures down low while holding their weight really well, for those really cool dynamic race poses. Now the overall final thoughts for both these figures, beautiful, love them, awesome finish. The joints feel super smooth. The die-cast parts is awesome. All the detailing is amazing. Now for the cons, obviously price, a little bit expensive. Maybe down in the 15,000 yen range will be a bit more tolerable, especially if you want to get multiple ones of these. I'm thinking maybe one more, maybe one more will be a nice compromise. Like 3 in total will be really cool. Maybe something which has really long hair or a really unique design I'll hold out for. Both of these having the same design, it'd be cool if they were a bit more different, especially with maybe a different hairstyle. I think that would have been really cool. But the nice colours that they picked, the blue and black with the grey, and the orange and grey ones, works really well. I love orange, so the colour scheme is really cool for me. I like the fact that we can use the stand case as a parts holder, which I will be using. I haven't changed the wheels yet. I'll do that in a future time. But I believe you can easily just pop those on and off for some customization. As I mentioned earlier, the Azure one comes with white wheels, which is cool. And then we got some orange ones for the Mandarin here. So that's really cool. But I quite like the black wheels on there. The sword's really cool. In 3 expressions, simple, pretty similar, but it does give a nice range. You got the straight on one for the concentrated racing, the one side glance, for maybe something using with the sword here, or the other one, a bit more of a disinterested look. So really cool. I love how the backpack works with the attachment for the stand. Overall these are just really good, and as I mentioned, they are expensive, but despite that, I don't regret getting them. And I probably would get a future release. I may think a little bit depending on what else is coming at the time, but I love the stylistic choicing for these. Something a bit more niche, something a bit different from my usual figures. But if you are wondering about the sizing, we do have a good old Goku here, where he can go, there we go, he can kind of slot on. The size difference is quite big actually. The torso range is about the same, but as we can see, the legs on the Cyborg Runners, you go almost up to the shoulder on the Dragon Ball SH figure arts. So definitely a lot bigger. Still probably 1/12 scale. It's just that the character design with those super long legs, I guess for racing purposes, it does make them a lot taller. So yeah, that does bring us to the end of the video. Drop a comment below for your thoughts on these two releases, and what would you like to see from this line in the future. I think it would be really cool to see a really big bulky guy, and you know, maybe some other weapons as well, like kind of like a Juggernaut style racer. I think it would be really cool to see. But yeah, I will endeavour to take some photos of these figures and check them on Insta later, so keep an eye out for those. But yeah, that is it. Please do like, subscribe and all that if you did enjoy and want to see more videos like this. And yeah, anyway, until next time, cheers!